Part 3. We're talking about the loony left, how far to the left and how crazy they become since Trump has become president. We're talking about politicians right now, and we're on to the subject of impeachment. I talked about it a little bit before, but I'm going to get a little more into depth. And why impeachment itself is a great example of how loony the left has become, how unhinged they've become when it comes to Trump. We've already listed all the reasons they thought he should have been impeached, none of which were actual reasons to be impeached. Now we'll talk about why the whole impeachment process was a complete fiasco, completely unconstitutional, and completely biased. In a desperate attempt to find some way to get Donald Trump, Adam Schiff coordinates a whistleblower, who, by the way, I will name. His name is Eric Ciaramella, and he is a huge. He's a Democrat. He's a donor. He is a operative within the Democrat Party who has been seen hanging out, taking photographs with multiple Democrats, many of whom were actually involved in this impeachment. And is believed that Adam Schiff actually coordinated this guy to come forward and what to say and when to say it. And proof to that effect will soon come out, I'm sure. But to come forward incognito, even though the whistleblower statute did not apply to him in any way, and there is no legal reason for anyone other than the IG, the Inspector General, to withhold his name, and accused Donald Trump of coercing the new president of Ukraine to investigate a political rival, Joe Biden, in exchange for the release of foreign aid, which was a type of quid pro quo. There's quid pro quo all over government. It happens all the time. Getting this for that, which is what the Latin quid pro quo means, this for that, is not illegal in and of itself. It's only illegal when it violates certain things. So let's go down a bullet list here of things that occurred during this crazy impeachment. This whistleblower coming forward leads to a House impeachment investigation run by Adam Schiff, which is first run in secret in the SCIF, which is the Sensitive Compartmental Information Facility in the basement of the Capitol building. And is also, this investigation is also done faster than any impeachment was done in history in order to use this against him during the upcoming election. Remember, it has to get done soon because there's an election coming up. That was the big rush. Point, the House never votes to start the impeachment investigation. Legally, in order to start an investigation for impeachment, the entire House as a whole body is supposed to vote whether or not to have the investigation. They never had it. Nancy Pelosi just deemed it to begin. Please begin, Adam Schiff. You think you've got something? Run with it. And so they did. The president's rights were violated when the House denies his lawyers to be present during the secret hearings, denied his lawyers to call witnesses or to cross-examine witnesses. The right to confront your accuser is a hallmark of a free society. He was denied this. The mere fact that the House avoided the adversarial system that they built into this, facing your accuser, cross-examining witnesses, etc., shows that they knew their case was weak and it was flawed. Proves it. For the first time, no actual crime is cited in articles of impeachment. It's never happened before in history. Now, there's not a lot of impeachment history. A few more for judges than for presidents, but still. Due process, which is the establishment of a crime and a legal standard set in advance of proceedings was completely ignored. Mens rea was also violated. No intent was established except for what was inferred by the left. They thought, they believed, they had hoped that Trump meant to do something illegal or meant to do some crime. They inferred it. But that's as far as they could take it. Inferring intent is not a legal standard. The Democrats also violated good faith principles with all the multiple calls for his impeachment prior to the actual impeachment, which created an unfair advantage over Trump, not only in the court of public opinion, but amongst all the Democrats in the first place. After claiming no impeachment should proceed without overwhelming evidence and bipartisan support, Nancy Pelosi decided to move forward anyway with highly disputed evidence. Not one Republican voted for impeachment, but 2 Democrats voted against it. The only bipartisanship, as it turns out, was on the left, was against impeachment. The first article of impeachment, abuse of power, was actually conducted by the House. They were guilty of abuse of power when they violated all these protocols for both partisan and electoral purposes. Electoral reasons, because they wanted to win an election. Pelosi and the Democrats claimed how important it was to remove Trump from office as quickly as possible to avoid allowing Donald Trump any attempts to interfere with the 2020 election, because they assumed he had interfered with it before, even though it was proven that he hadn't. So why not blame him for interfering with an election that hasn't even happened yet and scare a bunch of people into thinking it could happen? Then Pelosi held the articles from the Senate for 33 days. She wanted to make sure that, claiming she wanted to make sure that the arena in which, meaning the Senate trial, the arena in which the articles were being sent was fair. Where Pelosi was trying to dictate how the Senate conducts its affairs. I got news for Pelosi. According to the founders, the Senate is the body that's meant to check the House, not the other way around. Now let's talk about abuse of power. Their explanation was his misbehaving in some way. Let's talk about that historically, shall we? All presidents have misbehaved in some way or another. All presidents could have been guilty of, or found guilty or alleged guilty of malpractice, maladministration by their opposition. Here's some major examples going all the way back to the very first president, in fact, George Washington. He signed the Jay Treaty in the 1790s, which attempted to stop the antagonism between the U.S. and Great Britain, but infuriated the French, who were currently fighting the British, and the opposing party members who were pro-French, meaning the Republicans or Republicans/Democrats. Washington being a Federalist. John Adams, the second president, signed the Sedition Act, which sought to criminalize false, scandalous, or malicious writing against the government by news agencies, etc. That had to be quashed soon after. Lincoln suspended habeas corpus, which is the right of citizens to have authorities prove before a judge why they are being detained on legal grounds. He suspended that during the Civil War. FDR used the IRS, the DOJ, and the State Department against his enemies. He subsidized various groups to get their votes. That's quid pro quo, by the way. He pressured against granting political asylum to Jews who wanted to come to America in the late 1930s, He created Japanese American concentration camps. And they call Trump a Nazi? FDR was the most fascist president we've ever had. Both JFK and LBJ both used the IRS and the Department of Justice and the CIA, in LBJ's case, against their political rivals. While some backlash was severe, none of these presidents were impeached or even investigated for these actions. So why Trump? Impeachment was never meant to occur when the removal of the president was imperative, or was only meant to occur when the removal of the president was imperative, meaning absolutely necessary. Otherwise, issues between the legislative and executive branches are supposed to be handled by the third branch, the judicial branch, the courts, or handled politically by elections. That's what they're for. Let's talk about the State of the Union addresses and what the politicians have been doing during all that nonsense. Actually, I'm going to jump ahead to the Department of Justice and the FBI, since we're talking about impeachment and all the crap that went on leading up to the impeachment. You know, the different attempts to get Trump didn't start with the impeachment. They started with Russia hoax, then the Ukrainian hoax, the Comey issue, the this issue, the that issue. But trying to destroy Trump started even before he was a president. The DNC was engaged. We'll talk about the DNC, we'll talk about the DOJ. The DNC itself, during the time of Obama, by the way, most of the stuff happens under his watch, not Trump's watch. The DNC and voter fraud existed in great amounts during Obama's tenure, and with Hillary Clinton deeply involved in it. They're complaining about Trump messing with the election. Well, guess who really did? Remember transference, blaming others for what you yourself do. Guess who really rigged the election in 2016? The DNC helped Hillary, or rather Hillary and the DNC helped Hillary rig the election against Bernie Sanders, first and foremost, in 2016 by funneling money to her campaign, because she was in charge of the DNC by that time. And we'll talk about why and how. Many voters were dropped from the rolls or were registered incorrectly in Brooklyn, Sanders' hometown, where he was going to kick her butt and somehow didn't, in California, in Arizona, and elsewhere. So they could not vote, helping Hillary, because the most affected people turned out to be Sanders voters. The DNC allowed having the AP and the CNN declare that the superdelegates in California made Hillary the winner the day before the elections in California. Think that turned some voters off and made them not bother to go vote for Sanders, perhaps? The media also announced victory for Hillary in Arizona and Nevada while people were still waiting in line to vote. In Illinois, clean election activists caught officials literally erasing by hand, or erasing the hand count from a whiteboard at an audit and filling in the numbers to match the machine count of the paper ballots, which favored Hillary. A shredding machine truck was seen parked outside a San Diego vote counting location. A voting location official in Las Vegas was heard telling observers not to complain too loud when a group of "I'm with her" Hillary t-shirt wearing voters slipped past the registration tables without signing in, etc., etc., etc. Multiple abuses of election with election fraud, voting fraud. emails making this voter fraud clear was leaked to WikiLeaks by Seth Rich. And possibly these emails were hacked by Russian agents. Rich, by the way, was murdered just days after the leaks were published by WikiLeaks. Coincidence? Doubt it. In the summer of 2016, DNC coordinated and paid for, along with Hillary, the collection of false information in an attempt to sully the reputation of Donald Trump in the form of a fake dossier, which we've talked about before. That's what led up, the beginning of what led up to the impeachment discussions and really the Mueller investigation. Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned from being the chairwoman of the DNC after leaving the party in major debt, something around the tune of $24 million in debt, mostly thanks to Obama and his overspending, and allowed Hillary, through the Clinton Foundation, to virtually take over the DNC in exchange for paying off the debt, all before she became the party's nominee. And she basically was given carte blanche to run every aspect of it. Logistics, hiring and firing, where money was funneled to, the whole deal. The DNC became her complete control. And you wonder why she suddenly found herself being endorsed and winning election after election against Sanders? Emails also showed that Wasserman Schultz's bias towards Hillary and against all other Democrat candidates. Her successor, Donna Brazile, admitted to corruption far worse than she ever imagined and found that the collusion between the DNC and Hillary against Sanders was real, much to her chagrin and incredible disappointment, being a big fat lib herself. We will talk about the DOJ and the FBI's shenanigans in part 4. Stick with it.